Shalom. Before I begin, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Kakwadash, and the honors to the apostles and elders of the millstone. And shalom to the IQM teaching about the four corners in true sincerity. Back with another lesson through the Spirit of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, and Lord willing is edifying unto the elect. Alright, and the topic that I wanted to focus on, is basically, miracles. Alright, miracles. Okay. Before I get into the lesson, the true name of God is Yahweh, which means He is or He exists. The name of His only begotten Son is Yahweh Shai, which means He saves or He delivers. Alright. And with that being said, Yahweh, the Father, is going to send His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, to deliver the elect, from the four corners of the earth through the diverse captivities that we've been, scattered abroad. All right. And who is He going to deliver? The so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, and the speckled birds scattered. All right. We're living in times of great prophecy, coming to pass. All right, the Lord is making, moves, right? And, with those moves, all right, there's going to be a lot of, judgment and hell going on, all right, throughout the four corners of the earth. All right, Esau with his sword, pestilences, okay, teeth of wild beasts. All right, basically, various judgments, that are going to be sent out, various spirits that are going to be sent out to execute the judgment of the Lord. All right, but within those things, there's going to be a trial period, for us, a test, all right, to see, who was part of the elect or not. All right, the trial of our faith being more precious than gold, if you're paraphrasing. See, we are going to be tested. All right. And within that test, within that fire, is going to prove whether you are a man of God or not. All right, this is 2nd Esdras 16. And starting at 7, he says, "For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord." So a great uprising against the men of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. All right, because the narrative has already been pushed out that we are, anti-Sem, that we are, a hate group, black Hebrew Israelites, we're extremists and etc. All right, so when that time comes, it's going to be a great uprising, right? Because, people already know Esau that are been known, but now it's like the hate has grown, all right, and the scoffing has grown as well, all right. So when that time comes, when Esau, demonizes us on the news and etc., because that's how the things this is how things go. All right, the prophets of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, the prophets of God, right? They were put basically on display, the hate, right? They come up against, right? Not really knowing the truth, but really doing that to just hatred of, our people being exposed. So it's going to be easy, when Esau say all manner of things against us, because this world is purely wicked. The scriptures say that, we have become their enemy. It says, "I've become their enemy because I tell you the truth." And that's exactly in the stead that we're in. We have become the enemy to our people because it is truth, right? And it says, continuing on, it says, "There shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses." Who's going to be, all right, that madman in these times? Esau, Edom. All right, because we're not going to be the ones bowing down, all right, to this, to his, new world order, all right, because there is a new world order in play, to merge man with machine and ultimately have everybody chipped up so they can be under one system, and Esau, Edom can have, full, dominion, all right, over everyone. So he will know what you're doing, will know what you're about to do, know your complete schedule. There will be no freedom. There will be no privacy in the world that Esau Edom, wants to create. Right? But it says, And because of that, we're going to be throwing off our houses. They're going to take away our things. Basically going to take away our rights, all right, to exist, all right, because they're going to treat us like, less than nothing. It says, then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as gold in the fire. So as I was saying, that time is going to be a time of testing, all right, for us. But at that time, it will be known who are chosen of Yahweh Shemel Shai, right? Because the men of the Lord, they will not fold. And also, in the midst of them being tried, all right, miracles are going to happen, all right, whether it be by, teleportation or spiritual power, or, however the case may be, because that's really what it is, divine intervention from Yahweh Shemel Shai, right? Because when you go into the word miracle, right, it is a wondrous work of God, right? So it's a wondrous work of Yahweh Shemel Shai. It's a miracle, story of a miracle, all right, marvelous event caused by God. So it's a miracle. It's an marvelous event, and it is, because we're going to be rejoicing, when it does come to pass, all right, because when people think about a miracle, they think about, the impossible happening, and that's exactly what is going to happen for us, the impossible. It's just something that excites wonder or astonishment, right? Because again, we're going to be rejoicing. It says, without regard to divinity or supernatural power. This is a sign of wonder, power, right? And the definition says, supernatural phenomenon, a surprising and welcome event that is not explicable by natural or scientific laws, or is therefore considered to be the work of divine agency. Right, so even, when you let's think about it like with the chariots, right? How, these scientists say it defies the laws, of physics. All right, that's the realm of Yahweh Shemel Shai defines, natural or scientific laws. Because at the end of the day, who created these natural and scientific laws that nature abides by? All right, Yahweh Shemel Shai. So it's easy for him it's easy for him to work, beyond or outside of those, laws that he himself, created. All right. He's outside of that. He's omnipotent, like the scriptures say. So when people see, us eating in times of famine, us laughing and rejoicing in the times of famine, all right, it's only going to be by, miraculous things happening to us. All right. And the Lord has always done miraculous things, for the nation of Israel. And that's why these nations feared us, so much, and why they still fear, even now, all right, because they know that, once the Israelites are aligned with Yahweh Shemel Shai, there's nothing that they can, do, because Esau is a carnal man. He thinks carnally. He thinks with, natural or scientific laws. Like, he's not, supposed to be able to do that, but, what the Lord is about to do with us is going to be, amazing, right? This is Acts, 1 and starting at 6, it says, when therefore they were come together, they asked him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? So the times that we coming into, let me break it down. The disciples are basically, asking Yahushua, is he going to restore the kingdom of Israel in that time? All right, it was not at that time, but he said, he said, unto them, it is not for you to know the times or the seasons, because the Father hath put in his own power. So again, nobody knows when, the day of the Lord is going to be, right? Nobody knows, all right, except Yahweh. Even Yahweh Shai himself doesn't know. That's why he said what he said. But it says, but ye shall receive power. After that, the Ruach HaKodesh has come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria and unto the uttermost parts of the earth. So again, miracles, right? Because when we receive that power, according to, scientific and natural laws, a man is not supposed to be able to fly. A man is not supposed to be able to heal himself or people around him. So according to, scientific laws, a man is not supposed to be able to run fast, or, he's supposed to get tired. He's not, able to go, 2-3 weeks without food or however long, right? He's not supposed to operate at a high state, without, certain nutrition. The body will start to shut down. But the things that the Lord is going to do, for us, is going to be outside of that, right? And that's what we hoping for. That's why it's going to be such a marvelous, work, a marvelous wonder, and that's why we're going to rejoice. Okay, we're looking forward to it, because as Yahushua said in John 14 and 12, it says, "For verily, verily, I say unto you, that he that believeth on me, the works that I do, shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father." All right, so we're going to do great works. Yahushua said we're going to do greater works, than him. All right, because we going to need it. With Esau coming down like a flood, all right, the times that we coming into being the worst times in history, we're going to need it. All right, and it's ultimately going to be for our testimony of how the Lord, came through. Because like the scriptures say in Sirach, the 2nd chapter, and I just ended off on this, Sirach 2 and 10, it says, "Look at the generations of old, and see, did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded, or did any abide his fear and was forsaken, or whom did he ever despise that called upon him?" All right, so again, it's gonna be for our testimony, because look at our forefathers, the things that they had to overcome, the miracles that the Lord brought, for them. All right, it's gonna be the same thing to us. Look at the generations, of the men of the Lord, in Babylon, how Ira did this, how he was able to, disappear, or how the brother of war was able to, fly, or the brother Kobar was able to, fight, 100 troops or 5,000 troops, however long, how the brother Uriah was able to, stop time froze, things like that. All right, and these are just little things, but the Lord's about to really far exceed. Or how the brother, Uriah was able to, shoot, lasers, out his hands, or lasers out his eyes, or, the brother was able to, think about something else, call forth fire from heaven like Elijah did, right? And the list goes on and on. All right, each brother's gonna have their own testimony how the Lord came through, hence the miracles. All right, but hey, with that low in his lesson was edifying.